we have applied this maquette to several countries, several Latin American countries, and now we have an application of this maquette to 5 countries in Africa. Ethiopia was the pilot country. We have done a lot of work with the Ethiopian government using the maquette in order to think about strategies to reach the MDGs. Today there are applications to Ghana, to Uganda, to Mozambique, and another one starting for Zambia and for Malawi. So this is working rather well, and we have in mind to try to generalize that within the World Bank to make that tool available to do work. Now, we will be looking at 2 scenarios. In the case of Ethiopia, business as usual without any MDG strategy, which is essentially based on trends which were observed in the past 5 years, and then an alternative MDG-based scenario where the MDGs are reached by 2015, the list I gave before, and where all the, not all, where the budget for the public sector is being obtained one part through foreign grants, it is essentially foreign aid, and another part by adding taxes. So it is a kind of mixed financing where the tax rate in Ethiopia is increasing and the rest is being paid by foreign aid. This is the kind of result that we get. First, in order to reach the income poverty goal, it is necessary to accelerate growth. To accelerate growth, it is necessary to invest more in various types of infrastructure, in the agricultural sector, in the non-agricultural sector. I will not insist on that, but the rate of growth of the economy, which before 2005 was around 3.5%, is increased by 2% in the MDG mix scenario in order to reach the poverty goal. Poverty, which was 45% in 1990, therefore in 2015 is only 22%. And of course, all the other goals that I mentioned are also reached. Now, what you see here is how much foreign aid per capita is needed in order to reach the MDGs by 2015. And the purple curve corresponds to what is to be expected from the evolution of foreign aid without any specific MDG-based strategy, and the yellow curve is about the MDG strategy. And you can see that there is a huge increase in foreign aid that is needed. Basically, more or less, we can say that there is a need for an increase in foreign aid between 2005 and 2015, which is around $30, a little more than $30 per capita, which is quite substantial. In 2015, this means that the ratio of aid to GDP in Ethiopia, without any change, would be 33%. It's big, very big. It also means that by 2015, the size of the public sector in Ethiopia, in order to reach the MDGs, should be about 50%. Very, very big. It's bigger than the public sector in developed countries, in the most advanced developed countries. And in this 50%, you don't have the social security system. What you have is really pure public expenditure. So this means, and this is one lesson of the exercise, that if there is nothing else going on in the Ethiopian economy, then it will be indeed very difficult to reach the MDGs. And the alternative scenario, which I'm not showing here, is to say if you don't increase the productivity of public services, if you don't improve the delivery of public services, then it will be very difficult to reach them. And we are giving, in the paper on which this is based, we are giving the order of magnitude of the gains of productivity that are necessary in order to reach the MDGs without this huge increase in the size of the public sector. So this is simple macro consequences of this. Now, macro consequences of this is, of course, that if you have this kind of inflow of foreign aid, then you will have some kind of Dutch disease effect. And because you have all this foreign currency coming in, you don't need to export as much. And here what you see is a drop in exports, which is due to this policy. If you believe, and many people believe, that very much of the growth dynamics of a country is linked to the export sector, then this may be a problem. Here you have another example of what we get from this complete integration of the MDGs in an economy-wide framework. This is the evolution of the wage of skilled workers over time. And so when you look at the yellow curve, you see first a big increase in the in the level of skilled wages, which as a matter of fact will also correspond to a big increase in the ratio skilled over unskilled workers, and then a drop that is starting around 2012. This is a very interesting phenomenon for the following reason. The big increase is due to the fact that all this program of improving healthcare, improving education, requires skilled workers. We need to divert people with some education from the private sector, and therefore there is a demand which is unsatisfied for those people, and then the wages are going up. So this is what we observe here. But one of the big problems is that because wages are going up, all the costs in the public sector are increasing. You cannot say we will pay more for the additional teachers that we are recruiting. If the salary of the teachers is going up, then the salary of many civil servants, the salary of nurses, the salary of many people working for the public sector will be increasing. And the cost of reaching the MDGs will be higher because of that. So it is absolutely essential to take that into account. This is where you see that the fixed coefficient approach is a good first approximation to what is going on, but you may have major effects of this type, and this is what is being shown here. The big drop that we have at the end is also very interesting. It is the fact that after a couple of years, after 6-7 years of this program, we see people coming out to the labor market with a higher level of education. We start seeing people coming out of 6 years, 7 years of schooling. And those people, when they enter the labor market, will contribute to increase the supply of skilled labor and will contribute to reducing the level of wages, and the evolution will then go in the opposite direction. Again, this is the way in which more educated people can contribute to faster growth. Yeah. Quickly on this, here I'm simply showing what we can do. I said before, the path toward the MDGs is proportional. It is absolutely constant every year. The same progress is being made. Here we are looking at what would be the impact of changing the sequencing. What would be the impact of going very quickly in the beginning and more slowly at the end, or the opposite. And what you have on the horizontal axis here is a share of the additional money that is needed to reach MDGs that is being spent in the first part of the period, 2003 until 2009. And what you observe here is that definitely there is an optimal sequencing of the expenditures, which is we have to invest, here to be around 25% in the first part of the period. The reason why we do this is because there are productivity gains taking place in the economy, and therefore spending money later is less costly in the sense that we are able to buy better services by delaying the moment where the money is being spent. And this is what we see here, which means that there are definitely big issues of sequencing. And here, finally, we can look at trade-offs. The top point here, we have two dimensions: the income poverty target and the human development target on the vertical axis. The target, of course, to reach 100% on both sides, which corresponds to some value of the total aid that is being given. But let's assume now that all that aid is not available. So we will not be able to reach the MDGs. And then we have trade-offs. And this analysis permits to identify the trade-off. If we want to reach the goal in terms of poverty, then how much do we have to reduce, by how much we have to reduce the other goal? Let me talk now very quickly on the conceptual difficulty that is behind that. I think that this exercise is really, from what I know, the only exercise of this type at this stage. I'm not saying that it is perfect, but at least it is an attempt at looking at the policy implications of the MDG strategy. Now, all this is leaving many questions unanswered. The sequencing, I've just mentioned that. Why not exploring all possible time paths? How do we do that? This is not a very easy exercise. Why should we have all the MDGs making progress at the same time? Why not investing first in education, then in health, or first in water or in roads, and then in health, etc.? This is something which we would like to analyze, and it's not easy to do because of simply modeling technical reasons. This is the path with time-varying structures of spending. If we said that the MDG 2015 is impossible overall because of the reason I mentioned before, because it would not be possible to make the productivity gain that I mentioned, then how do we want to choose the target? What is behind that? The difficulty we have is that we are not in the framework, the standard framework of what we could call optimal growth analysis, where optimal growth would be a welfare function that would include, of course, all the MDGs. Because we don't have an explicit function that permits aggregating the various MDGs and making trade-offs on the objective side between the MDGs. Because of that, we are not able to analyze these issues in a simple and an intuitive way. So the problem that we have behind all these questions is the missing well-defined objective function, and the fact that the objective function that we are given, the pure complementarity and the date 2015, is maybe too rough to go very far with this kind of analysis. This is where I'm trying to close the circle. I'm getting back to my first love. And this is a standard representation of the two-dimensional poverty. I'm sure that Jim will be talking about this afternoon. So you have 2 dimensions, poverty threshold, Z1 and Z2. And you may look at all the people who are poor with respect to criterion number 1, all the people who are poor with respect to criterion number 2. And what the macro analysis I just mentioned does, it is defining in a very rough way, this complementary way, it is defining the objective in terms of P1 and P2. Number of people below the poverty line, number of kids going to school. So this is really one side, one definition of poverty, or one dimension of poverty, the other dimension of poverty. Is this satisfactory? As Francis was saying a little before, what about A? What about this area where there is an overlap, where people are poor on both sides? Should we consider that those people are in a different situation than people are in the areas where they are poor only in one dimension? This is completely absent from the analysis. What about the intensity of poverty, which, again, is not behind P1 and P2, which are simple headcounts? And if we want to go in the direction of, if we want to analyze P1 and P2, so what is the kind of function, welfare function W of P1 and P2 we want to think about? What is the kind of substitution that we want to have between those dimensions? Is it possible to find some kind of micro foundation to that? So let me conclude with those points on what I believe are directions for research. First, in the field of MDGs, there's still an issue of should we look at the MDGs in macro terms, as I did here, or should we look at them in micro terms? It seems to me that if we want to look at the production side, we need a macro approach. If we want to look at the evaluation side, we probably need a micro approach. And the link between the macro framework I've just shown and a truly micro database which would allow us to draw the kind of chart I've just shown is still to be done. I think that we must deepen the production side. I'm not completely clear, as a matter of fact, on the micro side. I mean, when we look at the MDGs, I'm stopping in 1 minute. When we look at the MDGs, they have a different nature. When we look at income or income poverty on the one hand, and education of the kids on the other, are we looking at two characteristics of a single individual? Or are we looking at the characteristics of the kids depending on the income of the parents? So isn't it the case that behind the MDG education, what we really have is more an issue of equality of opportunities more than an inequality of outcomes? How do we go about this? I think that there is conceptually a point to be analyzed with more detail. I already made the point of the W of P1, P2. And then, of course, what I said yesterday, with few dimensions of MDGs, it is not difficult to find a way to say things about an MDG strategy. But you may remember that we have used only 5 MDGs. When you look at the UN declaration about the MDGs, then you'll find that there are 77 objectives. And this is my last question, is how do we take into account 77 objectives and trying to solve the kind of questions I put here with all 77 objectives. I'll stop here. Sorry to have been too long.